Hello and welcome to SteamLUG Cast, Season 3, Episode 9. We're recording this on the 1st of May, 2015. I'm Bean, and with me I have Hero.
Hey there.
And Dorita.
Hello.
So, Dorita, let's start with you. What have you been playing?
Nothing really. I had not had the muse for the stuff I had time to play and not the time for the stuff I had the muse to play. So, there we go. And you, Bean?
Someone gifted me Nuclear Dawn, and I've been checking that out. It's kind of sad to get into a game that's it's really exciting to play. Looks like it's got a lot of really good team play in there, but it's not a good.
It's dead.
Yeah, there's not much chance that it's going to be around for very much longer, which is kind of sad. Also been playing Cosmicoria, which I picked up during early access just because the idea of like a naked space farmer bringing a dead galaxy back to life by planting just seemed to appeal to me. And the aliens in it hate color, they hate joy, so they're out trying to kill you. And I've been playing a lot of Assault Android Cactus. A lot of that. Been doing pretty much daily drives consistently for the last week or two. Really looking forward to this one. Still in early access, lots of polish. Probably one of the best examples. This is one of those shining examples of early access done right. So, Hero, what have you been playing?
In contrast to you, I've been playing very, very many games. Dabbled in some Battle for Wesnoth, 0K Chicken mod, where I got killed by friends. Nuclear Dawn with you. Kerbal Space Program, it was just released. Messing around with some of the new features.
How is that, by the way?
Played a lot more. That's really cool. There's a lot more little touches that add to the realism of the game with the full release now, so that's pretty fun. Played a lot of running with rifles. Messed around with Strike Suit Zero some more, found out that the inversion does work, the Y inversion, just not exactly how you want it to.
Is that for controllers? Or for mouse and keyboard as well?
I'm playing with a controller. It doesn't listen the first time you tell it to invert, and then it inverts it the wrong way, and then it works. You basically just keep trying until it works. So, been playing that. Some Crypt of the Necrodancer. Testing out Bomb, which is a early access flying shooting game sort of thing. It reminds me of Crimson Skies, if you've ever heard of that. And then, of course, some Guns Vickers Online.
Wait, Crimson Skies, you're talking about the original Xbox title?
Yes.
Oh, yes, I'm familiar with that one. So Bomb is very much like that?
Yeah, it reminds me of that, but I also have some audio issues in that game right now, and the fact that it locks the mouse is a little annoying.
So kind of like a third-person dog-fighting...
Third or first person, yes. It's very, it has a single-player campaign as well as multiplayer, which is mostly why it's in early access, to smooth out the multiplayer options. Lots of different plane options, and weapon options and things like that.
Alright, I'm intrigued now.
Yeah, maybe we can play it later.
So, we had some events, all of which I managed to miss. Tell me about it, Bean, if you have been there.
Oh, I wasn't there for Dota 2, but I understand that Hero managed to make it, even if he was just doing so in a broadcasting capacity.
Yeah, I was there. We played one match against bots when we didn't have as many people. Then we were able to do 2 more matches with SteamLUG players on each side, as well as a few bots. But for those 2 matches, I was able to stream it live. So I have some recordings. You can check that out on I guess on my YouTube. My YouTube or my Hitbox or the SteamLUG YouTube also has it in a playlist. I guess I should have. Let me find a link.
You could also add that to the forum discussion post too, if you haven't already. We've got the one thread for event videos and screenshots.
Yeah, I'll do that.
So then after that we had Torchlight 2, which was a lot of fun. Played for a few hours. We ended up having to break that off into 2 groups because I think at one point we had more people than we could get into one game.
How many does that support in one game? Is it 5 or 6?
6 max, but I think we had the original setup was arranged for 5.
Okay.
And then we ended up getting 8 people, so we just split it off. But that was definitely a lot of fun. Really enjoy Torchlight 2.
Did you have a lot of problems managing a potential level gap, or was everybody on the level close enough?
I think we had one person there that was completely overpowered, but the rest of us were in pretty similar space. I think I'd like at the time to like go forth and maybe do like an elite run and everybody starts with new characters or something.
Yeah, what difficulty were you guys playing on?
I think we're just playing on normal, so that way, in case somebody came up who hadn't played before or wasn't familiar with it.
Yes.
But of course, it's not usually how it turns out. So then we followed that up with Meltdown. Did either of you manage to make that?
I missed all of them, as I said.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Yeah, I don't have that game. I know that John was there.
Well, and then there was Dead Island. Has that improved a lot since the last patch?
Actually, yeah, it has. John and I and a friend managed to play for a couple of hours. We actually joined into John's game. It still has an issue where it seems sometimes you can join into a friend's game through the Steam matchmaking. Sometimes you can't. Other times you just have to have someone invite you into their game and it works fine. It doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to it.
And that bug with the knuckle dusters that were in every loot crate ever?
Right. For me, I was getting nothing but energy drinks. But yeah, that's been fixed as well. You can now repair items back up to 100%. This is something, yeah, there's been a couple patches since that. And the performance is definitely better now as well.
That's good.
Cool, I might get back into it.
Well, I still have yet to finish it, so let me know when you're going to do that, and I'll join you. All right, so what do we got? What do we got coming up?
Team Fortress 2, right after this year cast. So, I guess that's always still popular. Feel free to hang around and play it. And then there's Guns of Icarus Online, tomorrow, on Saturday. Left 4 Dead 2 next Friday, and Crypt of the Necrodancer, which surprises me, on the Saturday after that.
Well, yeah, now Crypt of the Necrodancer is going to be kind of an experiment. The idea's been tossed around a couple of times that maybe we can try running some single-player events, find ways to maybe get people to not necessarily compete, but at least participate in some way with the same game, even if it's a single player. So in this case, the idea was maybe run through a particular seeded level and have multiple members of SteamLUG run through it, possibly even stream simultaneously, that kind of thing.
Right, so it'll still be all experiencing the game together, but in this case, we can't play networked multiplayer.
Correct. Also looking forward to, I was thinking hopefully maybe we could do like a Binding of Isaac Rebirth as well, because that supports seeds.
Yeah, we had some early events in the beginning of the event phase of this group where we were doing like Amnesia and other single player games, so this isn't unheard of, but we have kind of put the idea aside. Let's see how this works with a lot more people around in the group nowadays.
So in the community, the Adventure Jam just passed, and one of our members, Cheeseness, has uploaded a Linux version of his project Above the Waves.
It's super adorable, but it features gratuitous levels of sea animal abuse. Not really, but I find one of the implications of one of the puzzles quite troubling to me.
Oh, there's a couple actually for me as well. But yeah, the art style is adorable. It's very cheerful. It's got a little too much joy for me. But that's
too charming for Bean.
Yeah, for what happened to that little octopus, he was quite joyful at that one point.
Right, all the way through it all. So it's wonderful. I'm not sure exactly what that's supposed to represent to the player. We could have Cheese on the cast and ask him sometime.
Yeah, that's true. But it's quite short, quite lovely.
Definitely go take a look at it.
Yeah, why not? It's completely free. And it won't sell your PC information to Zimbabwe, I swear. Maybe.
So the SteamLUG YouTube has updated its playlist with videos from other channels. So there's now a Portal 2 Mapping Challenge playlist, a Recorded Events playlist, and a Streams playlist. So we can get some more content out there from things that have been happening. There's videos added from Lajani, from Xpander, and from my channel as well.
And I was just going to say, if there's anyone else who's got, Linux gaming videos that they want to share out there, let us know.
So, moving on to general Steam and RAV news. Something big has happened I'm quite happy about. Steam accounts must now spend $5 minimum to have access to a bunch of features, some of which are sending friend invites, which is a big one here. Because if you are somewhat active on Steam and have ever listed any valuable item in the community market, you will have received a lot of spam bot friend invites. And that has been a big problem for just about everyone I know. And that has now been nipped in the behind by this new feature, because it now costs you $5 to get your bot to be able to do that, which is probably not a lucrative idea anymore. What do you guys think about that?
I'm absolutely behind this idea. Like you had mentioned, if you're one of those who at some point listed a foil card or something else on the market that somebody else may have thought was a high value item, and oh my gosh, for those of you that get item drops in some of those other games, forget it. But yeah, you end up getting like random invites all the time, and you check the profile, Steam level 0, completely private. It's like, no thanks. So I think that this at least makes that barrier to entry a little bit higher. I still think the people who think that they're doing it for some kind of reward may still look to do, like, on a smaller scale, the same thing. Because $5, they're going to get that back.
Yeah, but the success rate for these bots was probably like in the per mil range, and
right.
So it's not that worthwhile anymore. They will be more targeted other avenues of approach to scam people out of their items and the Steam accounts.
Right.
But yeah, the one caveat about that whole thing, you have to spend these $5 on Steam itself, either through wallet charges or through directly buying through credit card and PayPal and what have you, because any kind of gift or retail Steam key or Humble Bundle Steam key will not change that. It will not contribute to that minimum of $5 spent. That you have to keep in mind. So if you suddenly find your account restricted for some reason, that might be it, and you should maybe look into getting a debit card if your plan was to spend on Steam anyway.
So since this has happened, I haven't received any fake-looking friend invites, but it does affect the few people who might start a Steam account and not have the money to immediately buy a game. Either way, I think it's a good change.
Yeah, it might. At first, I thought it might affect young players a lot because they do not have all that much money to spend, especially not online, where a credit card is the weapon of choice. But as it turns out, I was thinking about my nephew, who is quite young, who pretty much the first thing he did with Steam was buy a Steam wallet card and use that one. So he's out of that zone already. So I haven't seen all that many people complaining yet, and by all that many, I mean nobody. Nobody has complained yet. I personally know of.
I'd be surprised if anybody does. And I mean, looking at some of these, I'm quite surprised actually that these were allowed with no kind of attempts at verifying identity on Valve's part. I mean, participating in the Steam market seems like a big one to me.
Yeah, even though when you are restricted, you can still receive friend invites from non-restricted accounts, so you are not completely out of the loop. If somebody just gets into Steam and has at least one friend there, they can get started and have that friend by being added by that friend.
Yeah, so it doesn't completely lock you out.
But yeah, all in all, it's a win for all the decent people who were just wanting to play their games anyway and not scam anybody.
Indeed.
So, moving on, there is a sign up for the HTC Vive Developer Edition. You can try to get one now if you are a developer. But yeah, I guess. Is this still for free for actual developers? Or do you get the privilege to maybe be able to pay for this?
I believe you're signing up to pay for it.
No, actually, I'm just reading it. The Developer Edition is not currently for sale. It will be available for developers free of charge. Commercial units will be available later this year. So, yeah, I guess this will also invite a lot of scammers because you could potentially get this thing for free if you were pretending to be a developer is actually working.
Yeah.
But yeah, please don't do this. Let the actual devs with street cred go and get this to make their games work on it.
That's pretty nice. That means that
So you can have a good experience.
that means that more developers should be able to get their hands on the hardware and get a good experience for when the commercial version is released.
Yeah, a company that probably has as much money as Valve can afford to do this.
And HTC.
Actually, I think Valve is more in the position to do this. While HTC might be bigger, they are caught in a lot of different places, and they are a public company, and public companies have other obligations.
So to go along with that, there's the OpenVR SDK, which was just released in the new GitHub repo that Valve made. So that includes example files for how to use it, and should make it easier for developers.
Yes, indeed. Especially if the license seems to be okay. Yeah, it seems to be Valve's spin on the MIT license again, which is a definite plus.
But it does not have any code in there, but everything that's in there is free.
Yeah, at least the redistribution of that's right. And maybe they will add some code later on.
Yeah, I would hope, especially with the name OpenVR, but it's still nice to have that stuff.
Well, it's good to have eyes on it too, as well. And by at least by doing it this way, even if they're distributing just this, the binaries, and saying, here, you can take these around too, there are other people now looking at it. And so hopefully down the road, yes, they will bring in some code on that. So I guess what is the idea? Is this supposed to kind of act like SDL is the glue between the hardware and the system? Is that kind of the goal here?
It's supposed to be an open platform for game developers to not have to worry about what hardware is being used for the virtual reality device.
So pretty much what OpenHMD is already trying to do.
Kind of, yes.
Okay.
Just a Steam-centric version.
So yeah, Bean, have you been playing with the new two-factor mobile client authentication?
Yes, I have. In fact, I was doing it just before the cast started. I'm glad to see that Valve is kind of jumping into the two-factor authentication space there and trying to make some way of additional ways of securing accounts. The sad part of this, though, is it's still kind of tied to that mobile Steam client, and it got at least the last couple of updates. You can exit the application cleanly. If you turn off notifications, you don't still get push notifications, which would happen before. And so far so good. I was able to log back into my account. It asked for the auth code. Everything seems to be working so far. I just like to see them kind of separate maybe that from the mobile client.
Because the mobile client is terrible and useless.
Well, and it's also got additional code outside the authentication, which is what this is primarily supposed to be used for. So I'd really just rather that those things were separated from one another. That way the authentication code could stay clean and they could focus on that one task of just using it as an authenticator and not have it tied into other code.
That is not what Valve is ever going to do. If it's a feature, they will stuff it into Steam. There's always a corner that isn't used yet, and if there isn't, make a new one.
And then round them off later. Yeah. Anyway.
Now, this is a beta that you sign up for the group, and then they enable your account.
Correct.
Right?
You sign up for the mobile auth beta group. It's an open group. Join that group. Launch the mobile client. You go to the Steam Guard settings of the mobile client. There's an option already there to have your code sent by email. You can then, once Valve has authorized your account to access the program, you'll then see an option to authenticate on your phone. It says phone. Love this too. The only mobile devices that exist are phones. I happen to be doing it on my tablet that has no actual kind of cellular data to it. So it doesn't have an IMEI or anything else that they can chain it down to.
So in the end, if your email account is properly secured and accessible by mobile means, there is literally no benefit to this?
Correct.
All right.
But it's like...
Well, Valve can't always be doing the most positively well-received thing, like this next item. That Valve added the ability for... Well, let's put this right. Valve added the ability to pay for content on the workshop, starting with Skyrim. And that caused a shitstorm the internet hasn't seen since last week.
Sure it's been that long? Has it been a week?
Yeah, probably 5 days before that. There's always a new outrage these days.
Of course. Right.
No, but yeah, apparently the ability for modders and general workshop content creators to charge for their content has made the interwebs furious, large parts of it at least. They were not keen on the idea, and, well, they were pretty much down-bombing Skyrim with negative reviews for that, and it was all in all not a pretty picture. The claims were that modding is supposed to be free, it's all about the fun in modding, even though some modders probably disagree, evident by the fact that total conversion modding is pretty much dead and all of these people are now making indie games. But that didn't stop Valve from pretty much pulling the entire thing on the 28th of last month. And now we are back to where we were before, just Valve having lost a lot of goodwill and a lot of probably time and money on managing this mess.
Well, I mean, I'd agree.
No.
I would agree with the time and money part of it. There was definitely a lot caused there. But I also think that Valve's going to now sit back and kind of analyze what the response was and try and figure out a way to still push this forward in a different way. I mean, they kind of made that clear that this is not necessarily we're going to drop the idea altogether, just maybe this wasn't the correct approach.
Yeah, and some angry mans are still very angry about this one because they hate the potential of this even existing in any form and they are not getting their stuff for free entirely. I can agree that the execution and the message was shoddy because as it was set up, the split was 75% going to mostly to Bethesda and to Valve, and 25% for the modders, even though some modders apparently thought the split was good enough. If you tell that to consumers out there, they think they are not paying the people that actually deserve the money. They are paying the greedy corporations in the background that siphon it all off. So this was probably a horrible idea, even though the split is set up by Bethesda. So they were intentionally saying the modders only get so little money. But yeah, this soured the entire thing already, even for the people that in general were agreeing with the idea.
Sure.
No, Valve's intentions with this were to make it so that modders could work full-time on their projects and create awesome content.
Simon Roth, the creator of Maya, made an interesting point that even with that 25% and split that some people thought was way too low, it was attractive enough that a lot of designers at Bethesda could probably quit their day job and just, if that took off, invest into making workshop content only, because that split is much better and they would end up with a lot more money than they would at Bethesda.
So that means that the discussion can still continue from here. It doesn't mean that it's absolutely dead in the water or that we can't come back and revisit it again at another time.
Yeah, but seeing how the discussion started with the Gabe Newell AMA on Reddit, it was horribly received. Apparently, if you've paid any attention to this whole PC Master Race subreddit, which to me was nothing more than a circle jerk around this joke, some people apparently took it serious and have declared Gabe Newell the savior of PC kind. They were surprised at the answers he was giving and downvoting it all to hell. So, one of the answers that people were really pissed off at was that Gabe Newell said they see money as information, or he sees money as information. And the thing is, if you've paid any attention to any economics-focused interview, many of which Gabe Newell has given in the past few years, this is 100% his answer. He is a capitalist through and through.
Yes, he's never denied that. He's made it quite clear,
Yeah, that is fine, but if you make him the savior figure of your little circle jerk you took way too seriously, then you are bound to be disappointed. You didn't actually know the man, and yet you made him your savior. This is me getting angry at Reddit again.
Yeah, I feel your pain there.
But yeah, so
another complication with this that some people were upset about is generally in the modding community, content is shared between mods in order to make successive mods better, which complicates things if one mod is supposed to be paid for and others aren't.
But though if this is all on the workshop, the dependency was pretty much clear that modders could have their dependencies listed and then pay the mods they depend on their part of the share. So it's not like Ralph wasn't thinking about these scenarios. But yeah, this suddenly meant that some mods were relying on something that was paid for. Like there was a very popular UI mod that wanted to go behind the paywall, and a lot of other mods used that, which of course is a problem. And another concern people had was, even though Valve has not made it mandatory that Steam Workshop is the only place through which a game can be modded, it could still be the developer making that mandatory, and then it's the only way, and you can't even avoid those paid options. So people were afraid that they might be forced in the future to pay for mods through these means. So yeah, but we are still talking about mods, even though I myself have made it clear in the introduction that this is about the workshop in general, and a better way to execute it would have been maybe not a game entirely, but stuff like game engines and other things on Steam which provide other contents with the workshop than mods. For example, it has been the plan for Leadworks to use these paid workshop items to establish an item or asset shop similar to how Unity does it independently. And if it had started that way, I think it might have not made that much of a splash negatively and positively, but it would have been a thing people instantly get and accept.
And that's still something that could be open to the future. But for now, we will have to wait.
Yeah, but now I'm personally afraid that some people will jump on this because they see paid workshop items back again, even though they have no interest in any engine that might happen with, or any other tool. They just jump on it for existing, but because so many people are so opposed to the idea. And we know what internet angry men do when they see something existing that they hate.
Yes, well. So it's not, it's a pretty good segue into anger, from anger mans to angry bands. Another example of Valve doing something I think in the right direction is now allowing developers to actually have a say in players that might get banned. I shouldn't even say might, they're going to get banned, and now the developer has the option to ban players specifically.
Yeah, this seems redundant to me because apparently this just gives you the ability of a VAC ban to ban people from playing in that game online and using the market with any of the items from that game. So the developer has to ask somebody at Valve to ban this player, and it will basically look like a Valve ban. It could be temporary, could be permanent. If it's not permanent, it will not show up on the offender's account. It can be disputed, but though I'm asking why is that necessary? Because a developer of a game that isn't, even if he isn't using VAC, has every ability in the world to ban a Steam account from his game already, if he recognizes that.
Well, the intention is to make it so that people who are toxic in the community, in the chat and stuff like that, can have bigger repercussions. This would also show up on their accounts if you look on Steam. So,
but only if it's permanent.
Right. So if you see that somebody has 12 bans, then they're probably not so friendly.
Sure, but then again, if it's just about your game, and it is just about that developer's game, why not use your existing means to ban them? Why go through this bureaucratic overhead that in the end doesn't even help you that much, because it isn't even a community ban on top of that, and it will not prevent multi-accounting anyway more than it already doesn't. The VAC ban doesn't prevent that. This seems redundant. It's okay that it is there. It might be prone to abuse, but I find that unlikely.
Well, I think VAC is focused towards modifying the game to cheat, and this is focused towards keeping the community a nice place to play in.
So this is just for taking the poop out of the sandbox?
Basically.
Yeah, which is already entirely possible, and developers like Tripwire Interactive have already manually banned people from their game because they were really big old shitlords, but only like twice in the entire history of all their games. So nice that it is around. Let's see how this turns out, because, well, redundant system is redundant. Moving on to tech news, Red Hat has surprisingly joined the Kronos group, which, if you don't know, are the people who maintain OpenGL, OpenGLES, and Vulkan, and a whole set of other open specs. Because Red Hat wants to have more say in the development of graphics technology. I found that surprising.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting, having basically the biggest open source company.
Yes, somebody, already. Yeah, if you read that announcement, should we expect the OpenGL support in systemd soon? That was a big joke on that. I mean, you have to make a systemd joke on that.
Yeah, I know. I can hardly wait, though, because one day there's going to be just systemd. It'll be its own OS, standalone distribution. I'll be running that one. I'll have everything all in one place. I won't have to worry about it ever again. I just power my machine on it. It does everything for me. If something breaks, I can just go, yep, systemd.
Well, we see how deep this news goes. Red Hat, piss on systemd, let's move on.
All right.
So there is an initial release of the new open source AMD GPU driver. it's the basis for the new open source driver in general and the Catalyst driver, which will soon only be a proprietary userland tool to sit on top of this open source driver. But it only supports Tonga and future architectures, and every existing support is very, very limited. So you should not run out and buy the next AMD card hoping this will be supported, because the first card to be supported is the 285, and that is only very basic. The first card to actually get some more mature support will be the new 300 ones, but that even won't be the proper one, so you should not expect to actually use this as your daily driver until the 400 series card is out, and that is still some time to go. But it's good. This is a necessary move to happen, in my opinion.
Yeah, we're on the road towards better AMD support on Linux.
Let's say we are on the road towards usable AMD support. I mean, my expectations aren't high, but this is a good first step. Let's see how this and where this takes us.
This should also be in the kernel as an official module at some point, which means it'll be easier for AMD to keep up with their proprietary drivers in the latest kernel, which they've had issues with before.
Yeah. Let this be developed. Until then, it still sadly stands that NVIDIA is the only serious game for gaming on Linux, sadly. But this is hopefully going to change. So, do you like Blender? I like Blender, even though I'm unskilled at it. And it's now available on Steam for basically all platforms: Linux, Windows, and OS X.
And it's on sale.
Right.
100% off right now.
Down to a low, low price of free. From free.
How do they do it?
It's amazing.
Volume, I tell you. Volume.
Yes. Free software is magic.
So, out of curiosity though, because are there any real benefits to running Blender under Steam?
Basically having very fast updates outside of any repository, PPA, AUR nonsense. You just get the fresh version of Blender brought to you on Steam. That's the only real benefit. And maybe it creates another community to communicate about Blender in. And if this gets workshop support in the future, this might be really interesting.
Well, for many Linux users, we would just prefer to use the repositories of our distribution. But this also gives more visibility to Blender for maybe those on other platforms who are interested in 3D modeling.
Yeah, I probably will still use the PPA instead, because I'm really not all too keen on having more than games on a DRM set system, even though this is a free tool. Steam should not be the center of everything. I mean, if my games are gone tomorrow, I will be sad. I will be really sad, but it will not break me. But if I somehow have invested in a lot of tools on Steam and those disappear, that would be really, really shite.
Well, something else to consider too, and now is this built against the Ubuntu libraries that they're shipping as the Steam runtime?
Yeah, this is built against the Steam runtime.
Or is it okay? So it's not like statically built. It's not statically linked. So you could still run into potential issues that way. So I would still recommend running from your repository or whatever additional extensions to your repositories you have for your distribution.
Does this in any way make it easier to use CUDA with Blender? Because with fast changing drivers, I have a horrible time of having CUDA available for cycles in Blender, because the support breaks with every of the fresh beta drivers I always install, because that's what you do for gaming. It has been useful to me, but I just can't keep stable CUDA support around.
I never actually tried doing a cycles render, so I don't know. I do use Blender for all my video editing though.
Funnily enough, let me see. I just started the Steam version. There I have CUDA available, and let me start my local version.
I definitely have CUDA on my version from the Arch repositories.
There I do not. I do not have CUDA available in my local version. So if this is how this works, there might be a damn good reason for me to keep using it on Steam, and that if that makes it easier.
Well, I look forward to hearing back more then on if that is actually the case, because that'd be nice to know if there is actually some added benefit to running the Steam version. And I say Steam version, it's not like Valve's done anything to it. It's just getting it through Steam seems to me a dangerous step.
Yeah, quite so.
It's just a different way of getting the software.
But moving on.
Please continue.
Oh, so I guess Anna Sweet, the public face of Steam Dev Days, Steam Machines, left Valve and joined Oculus. Anyone
No, apparently this is talent moving about for whatever reason, and I hope that woman does well and has a good time over at Oculus, because there's a lot of cool stuff happening there.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving right on to the next topic, the porters, in-house porters of Dying Light have given a talk to on some Polish conference, I believe it was, but that talk is in English and you can watch it. It's called Dynamic Porting, and it basically boils down to how two guys worked behind the main team in 4 months to get this game running on Linux and really, really worked their behinds off. So mad respect to them. But seeing that port and seeing how young these two gentlemen are, it makes you not surprised about the quality of the Dying Light port anymore. If you watch this and see under what constraints they're working, how limited they were compared to the main team, and how pressed for time. So, context is everything. Now it's easy to understand the quality of that port, and I question the sanity of going for a same-day release on that and not just letting it boil in the oven a couple more months.
Well,
which wouldn't have hurt it at all.
Possibly. I mean, we've already heard the other side of that argument too, which is that if you're going to come to Linux, then make sure that you get it on that day one, or because why should we have to wait 6 months? By then, the community will be gone. There'll be no joy in playing it. So it's kind of a no-win either way.
Has it been for you like that with Civilization 5, which was released years after the original version?
No, not for me. Not for me.
Borderlands 2?
I don't have that issue, but that's because I have no problem with coming to a game a year and a half after it's been released.
And does anyone actually?
Yes, I have friends who chase the latest games. Still.
Are they on Linux?
Well, in this dynamic porting talk, they speak about the troubles they overcame with bringing it to our platform, as well as porting the graphics stack to use OpenGL. And then they had a question and answer session at the end. That was all in Polish, but they translated it. There's...
Yes, somebody on the Gaming on Linux community translated it. And there's interesting stuff. Talk about a patch that will increase performance from anywhere to 50 to 100% on Linux, which I hope is coming soon because I want to play the game I paid money for. But yeah, looking at that talk, there was a lot of interesting stuff about really little kinks that in part were already addressed by the multitude of other port reports people have made at conferences. And some stuff about the preconceived notions of developers, where apparently some special Visual C compilers, Visual C++ compiler quirks were considered to be the godsend standard, and everybody was surprised it wasn't working like that under GCC, even though if you know anything about anything, you know how non-standard Visual C compiler, the Visual C++ compiler is. That does a lot of interesting things that are not necessarily to be considered standard, and it's not a Windows versus Linux thing, it's about a compiler implementation of that language stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, still mad respect to these gentlemen, and it seems like they are dedicated to keeping up that support.
Yeah, the talk definitely gives me hope that the Linux port will definitely improve.
It absolutely will. I mean, these guys, with all the flaws this port has, I've said it before, I said it again, every patch releases for Linux the same time it releases on Windows. They have never been behind. Even if the page just doesn't do anything for the Linux version, doesn't give us any special features, it's still coming out.
Which right now...
There's never any release disparity.
Right now we are missing some of the workshop stuff.
But yeah.
But the game itself has not fallen behind.
No, absolutely not. Never.
And see, that's important. I mean, I have a couple of games where that's happened a couple of times. The Borderlands games will do that.
And some of them were better quality
right.
than this release for Linux.
The Borderlands games, it's, kind of a known thing that the Windows version might get updated before the Mac Linux versions do. Postal 2. Postal 2 is still waiting for the bump on Mac and Linux to match the Windows version that's been out for over a year now. So parity, I think that's one of the key things that you hit on right there is got a lot of respect for these guys and making sure that at least, like you said, the core game at least gets updated on Linux at the same time.
So yeah, good on them for porting this. There has been a Steam VR update, and they added 64-bit Linux support, which is that the only notable thing in that update?
Yup. No, I don't know. I think that's it. I don't actually have an HMD.
They also added the driver for Lighthouse, which is only available for Windows at the moment. Lighthouse is their base station that the Vive headset uses to track its position more accurately.
And there's also a fix to allow in-process compositor to work with OpenGL, which is kind of important to us.
Yes, it is.
So yeah, stuff is progressing on that front. General gaming news. The classic, the legend, the game people always used to ridicule Linux gaming, SuperTux Card has released version 0.9. It has a new trailer. The trailer is quite cool, but has awful sound effects. And they have based this release on a new engine called Irrlicht, which is already quite known in the open source world. If you have ever Googled for engines and then were disappointed by the selection of open source engines, that name probably came up.
So this is a modified version called Antarctica. So it has improved graphic effects and a few other things. Some of their new maps are way more visually impressive using these new features. They added 2 more maps, and they also added the start of online accounts so that in an upcoming release we'll have networked multiplayer.
Or at least the ability to compare times with each other. I mean, there's got to start somewhere.
Right.
But that's exciting because when people say, there was a time when there were no games on Linux, I'm like, you're so wrong. SuperTux Cards never left us.
Indeed. I recently played this for a reason I can't even remember, and I was surprised it had a Diddy Kong-like adventure mode. Diddy Kong Racing-like.
Right.
Which actually kind of makes me interested in it. Is that any good, or is this just a shallow husk of the adventure mode in Diddy Kong Racing?
I may have to take a look at that because it sounds almost like Crash Team Racing for the PlayStation.
It's interesting. It's the same concept. You have to win medals in order to unlock new tracks and continue so that you can save the people, save the world.
So there has been some repo activity on SteamDB for a very interesting game. That game is Arma 3, the hardballs military simulator by Bohemia Interactive, which is known to run notoriously bad even on Windows. Which is kind of relevant because seeing how that repo activity caught the attention of people, the developers of Arma went out and made a statement saying that this is just experimentation of a non-native version that is wrapped in some way, which might never even see the light of day. They are trying for it, and if it releases, and it's good, it releases. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So,
right, and
it's experimentation.
So they say
non-native one.
That there's a chance that it could come, but there is no confirmation.
Well, and they also said there's also a chance it may never come. So, I mean, I'm actually glad they did this because I think one of the things that's happened is people like to look at activity on the SteamDB as confirmation or proof that something is coming. Now, in some cases like this, it could be that, they were testing the waters and that same exposure has now made them rethink that. So I'm kind of glad that at least in this case, someone came out and said, look, yes, this happened, but this is why. We're not sure yet if we're going to be able to do this. We're not even yet sure if we're even going to continue, but at least we're taking a look.
Yeah, this is definitely risky territory because this game just factually does not run even on high-end Windows systems all that well. And if the Linux and OS X version, for that matter, are wrapped, this cannot be any better. It can only be worse. Even no matter how good the wrapper gets, there is overhead. There must be overhead. It is the law of the nature of these things.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And from the way that they said, it's non-native experimentation, and the repo mentions VP. It seems like the people experimenting were virtual programming who did the ports for BioShock Infinite and The Witcher 2, among others.
Yeah, and that being said, people have said they have really improved their technology, but the thing is, I've talked to the developer. Apparently, they really have to pick their battles. Why does BioShock Infinite work so much better than The Witcher 2 still? Even the first version runs better than the really highly polished Witcher 2 release after all this time. Which is apparently owed to the fact how the Windows version handles itself, how it is threading, how it isn't threading, more than anything else. So this is why this might be highly critical, dependent on how this game runs on Windows and what they can do to make it run well on Linux. So it's smart of them to say they are only experimenting, and it's smart of VP to agree to that, because I hope they have learned from that 2 big releases so far on Linux that they really have to choose what they release, or shitstorms are going to happen.
Yeah. And speaking of virtual programming,
Ah,
Spec Ops The Line is confirmed to be in development for Linux by virtual programming using their same technology. So
Yes, if you go on their main website, they have a little icon with Spec Ops The Line on Linux, and they say it's an alpha state. That's all you see there, but it's official, and if it runs halfway decently, I will recommend everybody to buy that game, even though it's not even gameplay-wise a very good game. It's just one of the most important and interesting games that has released in the last couple of years. And try to not read too much about that game. Just go in it as blind as possible with all your preconceived expectations and have them shatter.
it's
Shattered, I say.
And that's the thing, is it's one of those, it doesn't tell a necessarily new story, but it tells that story well. And like you said, the gameplay isn't anything that you're going to go scream to the hills about, but it's at least enjoyable enough to play through and not, the two complement each other. The story really complements the gameplay. They paced it well. I'm looking forward to this one. And it runs pretty well under wine anyway, so I'm really kind of looking forward to what happens when there's a specific, when the work's done to optimize it specifically for that game, with the Eon wrapper. So I'm looking forward to that one. So Half-Life 2 update?
So, yeah, Half-Life 2 update has finally come to Linux. It had previously come to Windows, and everyone was a little confused on why there's no Linux build. This is a standalone improvement to Half-Life 2. You need to own Half-Life 2, but otherwise it's a free update. So there's graphics improvements as well as bug fixes, and as seen by the fact that it is free on the store, it's been sanctioned by Valve, but developed by the community.
Looking at the screenshot, the graphical update seemed to be quite nuanced, if I may say so.
Yeah, it looks
Yeah, there are subtle things like reflections in the garbage cans and things like that. It's not,
right.
there's nothing really glaring.
Shadows and shader updates are mostly what it is.
It's not like that cinematic mod that switched Alex for Booberella.
No, not like that. And
That's actually a bonus
right, there you go. But it's
to not be like that.
yeah, the changes are very subtle, but they're there. It does also work with Synergy, but for that to work for me, I had to install Half-Life 2 as well.
Oh.
But then it would make the maps available and it would actually load them from Half-Life 2 update instead.
Oh, here's a big one in one of the Steam reviews by a user. For German people, best thing about this release is that it's not censored for Germany. Finally, I don't have to look at ragdolls that despawn in 1 second. I really hope this won't change.
Nice.
And he says it is censored now, no ragdolls. Are you sure, this guy? Huh. I don't know. I need to test this out myself. No, there's conflicting information.
Now, this also includes a new set of commentary from YouTubers and other community figures.
Yeah, I'm going to express my old here, but every time someone says YouTubers, I automatically translate it to you potatoes. All right, I'm done.
Potatoes. So GOG has added Linux versions of several games, like Lords of Xulima and, very importantly, X-Wing and TIE Fighter. Both the special editions. And also, less importantly, very much less importantly, Rebel Assault 1 and 2.
Are you kidding? Star Wars Rebel Assault 1 and 2 are absolutely ready-made for bots to run through them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
But I'm not a bot.
Well, I hope to be one day, so I'm really looking. Those are the good ones right there.
A lot of people were excited about X-Wing and TIE Fighter, not only because Linux support, but also because this is the first time the special editions have been available in a very long time. And the special edition adds many, many improvements. Most people would consider it the only version worth playing.
Yeah, they have been, especially TIE Fighter has had many releases. People are very split about which one is the best, or less split, and GOG only had the wrong ones until now.
So as I mentioned earlier, Kerbal Space Program has exited early access and released their 1.0 version.
That's always the thing about early access game. We don't know what to add. It is a space game you already know and love or haven't cared about in all this time, and now it's released. So might give it another look.
Yeah.
If you don't like the Kerbals, I don't know what to say about you. I didn't even buy the game, and I find these little things adorable. And I can't actually. I'm probably getting this at some point because I want to blow up some of them.
Now, if you've played during early access, they've said this is their biggest update ever. They added a new flight dynamics model, they added better heating simulation and fairings to go along with that, as well as resource mining, so you can now set up mines on other planets and process them and use them to continue your quest.
Another game coming out of early access is Verdun. That has just released, and there have been a lot of updates since. Noteworthy is that they have finally added a VoIP system to the game, which I lamented as being horribly missing in all my previous rants about the game, and I might touch it again. I haven't liked it one bit since I've tried it. I will touch it and report back at another point in time.
I look forward to that.
Yeah.
Because I know that the last couple times that this has come up, each time you've said, nope, it's not ready, this isn't here yet. But you've also said, it's early access, let's wait and see what happens and we'll revisit. So now it's good to see it's come out, and we'll take a chance and see, maybe we'll have an event on that.
It's definitely nice to have the in-game voice, because it's such a teamwork-focused game.
Yeah,
Very tactical.
I'm surprised they added it so late, because this was grinding my gears to no end early on, coming from Red Orchestra, where especially me personally was always going to coordinate some attacks, and always to great effect. I was missing this. I was just seeing headless chicken running around in a game that should be all about team play.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Another game that has not come out of early access but has finally been completed is Broken Age with Act 2. Am I right? That's complete now?
It is complete.
Yes, that is.
So yeah, apparently a lot of people find this act to be a lot better than the first one, as far as I've heard, but I have not played it. So any of you guys played it?
I have started Act 1 a couple of times. Yeah. I look forward to finishing it at some point.
Very diplomatic of you.
Thank you.
I do not have the game, but I've heard so much excitement about this wiring puzzle. I just want to know what this wiring puzzle is.
And Dungeons 2 has released, which is a Dungeon Keeper clone based on Unity 5, which has a bit more RTS elements than the previously talked about for the overworld or the original Dungeon Keeper. And apparently it's not that bad. People seem to like it compared to the first dungeons, which people seem to not like. Again, from the last time I was on the cast where I said, please EA, keep screwing up your franchises so indies can take over and make better games. Now we have two valid Dungeon Keeper clones that are better than anything EA has done with that franchise in forever, since Dungeon Keeper 2.
So I'll tell you what, Dorita, could you go ahead and get that change.org petition started to get EA to kind of just cancel all their things? I'll help you.
Not cancel. Violate it in public. Like they did with SimCity.
Okay, right.
And that Dungeon Keeper mobile game.
Right, there you go, okay.
Yes. Tell to EA, please release the most hideous, awful game you can in the most beloved franchises you have. So somebody else will pick up the slack. Some smaller publishers will greenlight the clone game that will inevitably be 100 million% better than anything you could ever hope to accomplish.
So yeah, get that petition up and let's get some momentum behind that. I think this is a great plan.
Yes, it can only benefit us. If EA suffers, everybody else wins.
Alright, so Cosmocoria came out of early access, and this is a game I'd picked up. Stopped playing it about a couple months ago because there's a loose story in there. You play a naked space farmer. You revive dead planets by planting plants, and then you grow the plants, collect more seeds, grow more plants, explore more planets. And there's other things that are going on there. Aliens are trying to stop you. But I stopped playing because the story was kind of intriguing. I was like, you know what? I know this is close to release, so I'm going to sit back. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to spoil it for me. Turns out that pretty much all the content in the game during early access was all just kind of placeholder text and meant to be cryptic intentionally. So I thought,
not a bad move.
So I was like, yeah, exactly. I was actually kind of impressed by the notion that, hey, tell you what, here's how we not spoil something for people who are already engaged in it. So the gameplay is the same, but the entire story you'd been chasing that time is not the same now. So I'm really looking forward to putting more time into that.
So, moving on to crowdfunding news, which we finally have. Yooka-Layla, a 3D platformer. And Linux...
So this game...
Yes, please tell us all about it.
It's created by the same developers who made Banjo-Kazooie, which is much loved and doesn't exist so much anymore. And Linux is not a stretch goal in this case. They intend on supporting Linux from the get-go. So that's exciting.
Oh, it's definitely exciting.
Is that a dragon gecko lady thing? Is that even a lady? This reminds me of Spyro the Dragon in some ways.
Yeah, and
I can see that from the art style.
I like this idea. I'd like to see some more action platformers like this. Like, I mean, I'm a big fan of the Ratchet and Clank series on the Sony side of things, and I would love to see more of these. These are the kind of games that I absolutely love playing. So again, kind of like getting the indies to drop off of EA. Same thing here is like once you get them out and away from the publishers they may have been under. It's kind of nice to see what they'd be willing to do on their own.
Yeah, and looking at the crowdfunding, that is ticking along splendidly. They are already at over 500,000 crits, and they asked for 175,000. So this is going well, and there's 46 days left to finish this crowdfunding campaign. And just looking at it, the auto update on the side, every couple of seconds there is a couple more bucks on top of this. It's going fantastic. So this seems to be a safe one to jump in on.
Yeah, this is good.
And moving on to the next crowdfunding item on our list, Formula Fusion, the Wipeout-inspired next-gen anti-gravity racing game, is also on Kickstarter, and it has the weirdest stretch goal setup where basically every platform is a stretch goal. Consoles, PC, Linux, Mac, everything is a stretch goal, and I don't get it why you would do it this way. The initial goal is super low. It's only £35,000, but they are only at £31,000 yet, and they only have 21 days to go. And this is not surprising. This actually has all the markings of a game people would throw money in on. It is a spiritual successor to Wipeout, which a lot of people are crazy about. Like, just slap a random British guy and ask him what he thinks about Wipeout. If he's under 30, he will say, "Oh boy, I love this." But this is not being funded all that much, which I might say might be owed to this strange way of how they set up their campaign. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I would definitely say that's kind of a strange way to lay things out. I mean, they start off with Windows 8 as the very first goal in there, and they give their reasons for it, but it just seems kind of the strangest way to lay things out. I guess maybe they're thinking hardware purchases have to be factored in or something.
Then ask for the money right away. Like, I mean,
Right.
the last actual big platform stopped with the OS 10 release at £200,000.
So just kick it there.
Why don't ask for £200,000 and then you start your stretch goals?
Another thing that surprises me about this is it looks like they have a lot of the base work done already, and it looks pretty good, but they're not getting a whole lot of support yet.
Yeah, and they have soundtrack by DubFX, this incredibly popular YouTube sensation vocal performer guy, and it's not going anywhere at the moment. It's not. It will probably go above 35,000, but wow, this is a poor performance for something that should have been a winner. Makes me angry when something is ruined by such a creepily laid out crowdfunding campaign.
Well, that's a shame. That means we might not be able to see the dawn of next generation racing.
Oh, darn.
We'll just have to wait for the generation after that.
Right.
I hope I live that long. May we all live that long.
So yeah, that concludes this SteamLUG Cast. If you have feedback, you can email us at cast@steamlug.org.
.org?
Bark.
SteamLUG.org.
Yes, steamlug.org. And IRC.freenode.net channel, #SteamLUG if you are hip with the kids.
Hashtag.
If you're hip with the kids, you'd also be on Twitter @SteamLUG.
If you have nothing better to do, you are on Google Plus and can visit us on Plus SteamLUG. And we are on YouTube, where you can find all our previous casts. And apparently, since recently, a lot of gameplay we have done with the community and from other Linux gaming related channels. Channel name is SteamLUG. So, thank you all for tuning in and see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
I hope that's the right one. And I can't delete it now, because John said don't do that or it creates some kind of like rift in the universe if you delete a tweet.
No, that seems correct.
I'm talk about Linux and gaming in Linux. Oh well.
Yeah, that's correct. That's good.
Good.
Okay, tweets out.
Alright, so last minute. Anybody have to go to the bathroom before we get started?
I just went.
You just went? Alright.
Too late.
Hello, and welcome to episode. Hello, and welcome to Steam.
I almost did not screw this one up.